Useless old-timers like you are fired today, haha. We don't need you.
That's what the new branch manager said to me. Just a few days after she started at the bank where I'd been working for many years. I got it. Smirking with a just you wait and see attitude as I left. The next day, a sudden account cancellation of $700 million took everyone by surprise.
Huh.
The bank was about to face a series of unexpected and unbelievable events, all starting from that cancellation. My name is Nancy Johnson, 55 years old. I've been working at this local bank since graduating from a community college. I started in a clerical role and worked at the counter. Now, I've stepped back to let the younger, adorable bank clerks handle the front desk. I only go to the counter when called upon by a customer. Otherwise, I stay behind the scenes, ready to support my colleagues whenever they need it. Watching them learn their trade and stand their own feels like nurturing my own children. It's truly enjoyable. By the way, I've been married to my husband, Bob, for 32 years. He's 2 years older than I and works as an engineer at an electrical company. He's a straightforward guy who hates dishonesty. He's a great listener of my nonsense and a wonderful advisor, always gives me sound advice. We were blessed with 2 children, and now they are married and have moved out, so it's just me and Bob living a peaceful life. Recently, a new branch manager was assigned to our bank. Her name is Elizabeth Anderson, a relatively young woman. Just 40 years old. She's probably the youngest branch manager we've had in recent years. During her introduction at the morning meeting, she struck me as a strong-willed woman with a very direct manner of speaking.
Now that I'm here, I'm going to revitalize this branch and achieve the highest performance nationwide. I need everyone's cooperation, so let's work hard together.
She spoke with such clarity and confidence that I immediately knew she was the kind of person I usually find challenging to deal with. After the meeting, the assistant branch manager began showing Elizabeth around the bank and introducing her to the staff. After the morning meeting, we all started cleaning our respective areas of the bank, and I began wiping the windows in the waiting area. That's when Elizabeth and the assistant manager approached me.
Nancy, can I have a word?
Sure, what's up? I replied with a smile.
This is Elizabeth, our new branch manager. Elizabeth, this is Nancy Johnson, our most experienced staff member. She's been with us for about 35 years, so if you have any questions, she's the one to ask. She can solve just about anything.
While the assistant manager was introducing me, Elizabeth looked me over as if evaluating my worth. Pleased to meet you. I might not be as impressive as the assistant manager claims, but I do my best every day, I said, feeling a bit nervous in front of the imposing Elizabeth.
Nice to meet you too. You seem to suit window cleaning quite well.
Excuse me. As I was stunned, she chuckled.
I thought you were the janitor for a moment. Well, if I have any questions, I'll be sure to ask you, Nancy. Let's move on.
Sure. Sorry, Nancy.
Yes, he said, and the two went straight to the conference room. Never before had I been mocked like that upon first meeting someone. how rude. I asked a young colleague cleaning up some scattered magazines nearby. Hey, do I really look like a janitor?
Of course not. You certainly have a mood of dependable mother, but definitely have the presence of a veteran banker, Nancy. That new branch manager is off to a bad start on her first day.
I wonder if that's a compliment or not. It's hard to tell. I fought to myself, as I regretted asking the younger colleague for her opinion. But maybe it's not entirely wrong to say I'm motherly. I admit, I can be a bit naggy. I do tend to fuss over the younger staff. Even after that, the assistant manager continued to show Elizabeth around, and the break room was buzzing with rumors about her. Listening in, it seemed that nobody had a good impression of her, which wasn't surprising after seeing her attitude. But maybe she's as capable as she looks. Perhaps it takes someone as assertive as her to lead the branch to greater heights, as she said in the morning assembly. I decided not to jump to conclusions, and to observe for a while. When I got home, I told Bob about Elizabeth, the new branch manager. He seemed displeased too and said, "Sounds like a nasty piece of work. You can't just run away from your job, so try to avoid her as much as possible." I resolved to stay away from Elizabeth as much as I could. The next day, after the morning assembly, the assistant manager announced he would be away on a business trip for 4 days, and asked us to manage things in his absence. Elizabeth sat down heavily at the manager's desk and began reading the newspaper. Unexpectedly, she called me over.
I'm reading the newspaper here.
Wondering what she meant, I saw her sigh in exasperation.
Oh, don't you get it? Could you make me some coffee?
Okay, sure, just a moment. Surprised. Astonished by her arrogance. As I went to prepare her coffee in the break room, I overheard another male colleague venting to a female colleague. He was upset because Elizabeth had criticized his performance from last month. Indeed, he had the worst contract last month. But normally, that's not the case. It was just a coincidence this time.
I was told that my performance was not good enough and that I need to work harder to achieve results. It was just bad luck that the deals I was working on last month were delayed and only came through this month. It's simply coincidental that the numbers didn't show up in last month's report. What's with that attitude as soon as her arrived?
I found myself in the break room just to make coffee for her, and I really felt like complaining. I consider myself a grown adult, so I didn't say anything, but I really wanted to shout, "What the hell with this branch manager?" From then on, every morning, as soon as she started reading the newspaper, she would order me to bring her coffee. Then, the day before the assistant manager was due back from his trip, Elizabeth came over to me again while I was working.
Nancy, can I have a word?
Yes, what is it?
What exactly is your job here?
She asked me abruptly. I was puzzled, but answered. Currently, I mainly assist with the counter tasks of everyone.
Is that all?
Well, no, I also clean inside the bank and check the parking lot.
So, you're not really doing any significant work, are you?
I was taken aback. Well, maybe that's true.
You see, I've decided to introduce cleaning robots in the bank. That means your job will be redundant, won't it?
She had an insinuating tone. What exactly do you mean by that? Elizabeth put pressure on me.
Supporting counter operations, which is even a single employee can handle that, right? You're just there to help them. That seems like a waste of payroll to me.
So, are you saying I should resign?
Yes, there's no need to keep someone who can't do productive work, right?
I just looked at Elizabeth in silence. She looked down on me.
Don't you think the company needs young, promising talent? It's better to get rid of unproductive, salary-stealing old-timers early on.
Elizabeth's exaggerated smile. Then she leaned in close to me and whispered in a small voice.
Useless old-timers like you are fired today. We don't need you. Ha ha.
After hearing this, I realized I had no reason to continue working here. I got it. If you're firing me, I'll accept it. We both agreed that Elizabeth would dismiss me. I have a lot of unused vacation days. How long should I keep coming in?
Oh, is that so? Well, you don't need to come in tomorrow.
I got it. It's been a short time since we met, but thank you for everything. I replied, then quickly started packing up for my departure. Elizabeth seemed pleased with my resignation and briskly returned to her desk. While I felt a pang of regret for being outmaneuvered into resigning, there was also a sense of liberation. And if she thinks I'm incompetent, she's probably mistaken. Imagining what might happen next, I couldn't help but smirk.
Nancy, Smith is here to see you.
A colleague at the reception called out me. Having worked in customer service for over 30 years, I've naturally built close relationships with many clients. Smith, in particular, had been trusting me and using our bank for over 20 years. Thank you, I'll be right there. This would be my last day to serve such clients. I wished I had more time to properly say goodbye. It was a great regret. Determined to serve my last client with all my heart, I headed to Smith's waiting seat. After finishing my duties for the last time, I bid farewell to my colleagues in the locker room. They were shocked by my sudden resignation and openly expressed their anger towards the manager.
How much we rely on Nancy, that woman has no idea. Who are we going to turn to in difficult times now?
Exactly. It's not just us. Many longtime customers depend on Nancy too.
They said, their faces almost tearful. I'm concerned about the customers too. It's unfortunate that I have to leave without saying goodbye, but if anyone asks for me, please explain it to them.
Of course, we've got it.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the suddenness. If you ever need help, feel free to call me. I said, bidding farewell to the bank where I had worked for so many years. The next day, during lunchtime, I received a message on social media from one of the young bank clerks. While sipping tea at home,
Smith came in this morning and canceled all his deposits. He said if Nancy isn't here, there's no reason to keep his money with us.
Smith, the only customer I had the chance to say goodbye to. When I told him about my resignation yesterday, he seemed deeply disappointed, which probably led to his decision. I felt terribly sorry, but it was out of my hands now. In my heart, I thanked Smith for trusting me so much and for his gesture. By the way, Smith is the president of a very famous local trading company and was one of my biggest clients. I remember hearing his total assets were nearly $1 billion. The amount he had deposited with us was about $700 million. With such a large withdrawal, our branch must have suffered a significant blow.
What do you mean?
A customer who was with Nancy said that if Nancy is no longer here, there's no point in keeping their account with our bank, so they canceled everything.
What, really?
Elizabeth was reportedly so surprised that she was speechless. I wish I could have seen her reaction with my own eyes. A week has passed since I left my job. During this time, I received several calls from my former colleagues, informing me that many customers, just like Smith, were canceling their accounts upon learning of my departure. The staff knew that I hadn't left on my own accord but was forced out, so they were unable to persuade these customers to stay. Furthermore, the news of my departure spread from customer to customer, leading to dozens of inquiries each day at the branch. Following these inquiries, customers would come in the next day to close their accounts. Elizabeth was reportedly pale with fear as the cancellations continued day after day. If this trend persisted, the survival of the branch itself was in jeopardy. She was living in fear, wondering when the next account cancellation would occur. Then, I heard that an investigation had been launched by the headquarters. In just over a week since my departure, the total amount of canceled accounts had exceeded $2 billion. The assistant manager was confronting Elizabeth daily, filled with anger and panic. Why did you arbitrarily decide to fire Nancy? With Nancy's experience, it's obvious she had long-standing relationships with our clients. How are you going to handle this situation? Then, Michael, the division manager from the headquarters, came for the investigation.
It's been a while, Branch Manager Anderson. You seem to be having a tough time since your assignment. What happened?
Michael, the division manager. Welcome.
Elizabeth, completely taken aback, greeted him in a flustered voice. The employees were apparently struggling to hold back their laughter.
I heard you recently let go of Nancy, who had been working here for many years. Were you unaware of her reputation? Nancy was highly regarded even at the headquarters.
Elizabeth was visibly shocked to learn about my reputation and seemed amazed that someone as
What, really? But she seemed so unassuming.
Hey, appearances don't matter. Nancy was diligent and attentive, managing many long-term clients. Nancy was trusted so much by the clients that they felt comfortable only with her. Didn't you know she was repeatedly recognized in company-wide meetings?
What did you say?
Hearing this exchange, Michael spoke up calmly.
Elizabeth, this situation is a result of your unilateral decisions. You must be prepared to take responsibility.
How could you not know that Nancy was just doing relaxed cleaning and occasionally helping others? Why didn't you inform me?
Elizabeth tried to defend herself in panic. But the assistant manager retorted,
Don't blame me. Judging Nancy as incompetent based on just a few days of observation is absurd. Plus, you fired her while I was away on business. If you had consulted me, I would have never allowed you to fire her.
Elizabeth was left speechless and trembling. Michael continued.
We will have a board meeting to discuss this matter. Also, we have reviewed your work history. You have increased contract numbers through forceful methods. There have been numerous complaints from both staff and customers at your previous branches, and all of them were related to your clients.
Elizabeth looked at Michael with a tearful face. Unperturbed, he went on.
Our bank's motto is sincerity to customers. Your approach would never earn their trust. And your failure to recognize a hard-working employee like Nancy shows you lack the ability to lead. Regardless of the outcome, Elizabeth, I don't see a bright future for you in this bank.
After saying this, Michael left for the headquarters. Elizabeth collapsed on the spot, stunned and unable to move for a while, as reported by a colleague who witnessed the scene. During my time as a teller, I had actually been personally requested by many clients, including executives, CEOs, chairpersons, private investors, and owners of private businesses, mostly for substantial transactions. The amounts they deposited ranged from tens to hundreds of millions, like Smith. Not knowing this and firing me unilaterally meant losing the trust of these clients who had faith in me, leading them to surely transfer their accounts elsewhere. It was something that could have easily been foreseen, yet all because Elizabeth rashly deemed me incompetent. Following this, Elizabeth was relieved of her position as branch manager and sent to work in a remote branch, doing the same teller work she had looked down upon. However, her attitude and mannerisms continued to alienate both staff and customers, leaving her counter mostly empty. There's even talk of her being moved to a contractual position. If she had changed her attitude after being transferred, things might have turned out differently, but it seems her pride didn't allow it. I deeply pity her for that. Later, Michael and the assistant manager visited my home to personally apologize.
We are truly sorry for what happened to a model employee like you, Nancy. Elizabeth's rudeness will be apologized for by me on her behalf. Nancy, would you consider coming back to work at our bank?
Nancy, I'm also asking you, please. I'm truly sorry for the unpleasant experience you had. It was my oversight, but our branch really needs you. Please come back.
Both of them bowed deeply, pleading repeatedly for me to return to work. Their desperate demeanor led me to ask for some time to think it over. That night, after discussing it with Bob, he said,
If they went to that length to ask you, and if you think it's right, then maybe you should go back.
Given that the root cause, Elizabeth, was going to be dealt with, and they were so earnest in wanting me back, I saw no reason to refuse. The next day, I contacted the assistant manager and successfully returned to work. Upon my return, I reached out to the customers who had canceled their accounts, and fortunately, most of them came back. The assistant manager was overjoyed that both the customers and I had returned. It was a rare sight to see a grown man cry and bow in gratitude, something you wouldn't see anywhere else. I heard that our branch was at risk of being absorbed, but this issue was resolved thanks to the return of the customers. With Elizabeth transferred, the assistant manager was promoted to branch manager. He might be a bit timid, but I think he's a good boss who pays attention to those around him. Since he relies on me, I have to work hard to meet his expectations. This incident has made us both realize how important mutual trust is. And today, I am working to my best at the bank, supporting my colleagues and each other.
Is dining on your mom yummy, Mr. Jobless?
That's how an interviewer, who I had unexpectedly run into at a fancy restaurant, mocked me. Just the other day, he had insulted me persistently during an interview. After graduating from university, I had spent time abroad, and this interviewer scorned me for not being in the United States, even labeling me as jobless.
You're not doing him any favors by spoiling such a jobless guy, ma'am,
said the interviewer, taking advantage of the fact that I didn't retort due to the upscale nature of the high-end restaurant. He even began lecturing my mother. He didn't expect that a few minutes later, he would be told by my mother, "Turns out you're the jobless." My name is Mark Harris. Dressed in a cool suit for a job interview, I'm standing in front of a large building. Today, I'm here for an interview with a company in this building. I saw my watch 9:40 am. The interview is due to start at 10 o'clock. I arrived in front of the building 20 minutes early as planned, feeling a sense of satisfaction. I'm really impressed that trains and buses are on time in the United States, as I recently returned from living abroad. I left the United States 5 years ago, right after graduating from university. I enrolled in the economics department at my university, but not because I particularly wanted to study economics. I chose a university that was easy for me to commute from home. The only reason I ended up in the economics department there was because it was the one my grades allowed me to get into. However, I felt increasingly out of place with every class, realizing this wasn't what I wanted. I had a dream, but somehow I had given up on it as unachievable. So, I just drifted through university. That's when my mom got a job overseas. She was a career woman, always on the move, so her absence from home was nothing new. Ever since I was young, my mom was often away from home, but I never really felt lonely because my dad was always at home. In contrast to mother, my father is a writer. He seems to be a popular writer to some extent, but my father is extremely shy and has a hard time being in front of people. He hardly ever appeared in public, earning the nickname the Phantom Writer. Some even speculated the writer for real was a robot, denying his existence. By the way, since my father dislikes having his photo taken, the author's photo for his works is always a picture of the cactus he is growing. Despite their differences, my parents were inseparable. When my mom had to work overseas, my dad simply said that he needed to find his passport and pack their bags, indicating his easygoing decision to accompany her. My dad always boasts that his job can be done anywhere in the world, as long as he has an internet connection. My mom, understanding Dad's nature, said that she had known he'd say that and suggested him to renew his passport first. If it were overseas, honestly, I also wanted to go, so I raised my hand and told my mom to take me together. But she immediately rejected it, persuading me of the importance of graduating from university. And just like that, my dream of living overseas was shattered. Even after that, My mom continued to travel all over the world for work, and Dad always went with her. My parents left me and our home in the United States so that I could continue to live there, and they moved overseas at ease. Left alone in the family home, I was initially resentful but soon resolved to make my own way abroad. Somehow, I managed to graduate from university, and instead of finding a job, I spent time living abroad in France and Italy. During my time in France and Italy, I only worked day jobs and part-time, which makes me realize now that I virtually had no employment history. I don't know why, but belatedly, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of doubt, wondering if everything was going to be all right. With these anxieties in my heart, I reassured myself that everything would be fine because I'd passed the document screening. I then headed towards the company for the interview, once again encouraging myself.
Mr. Harris, please come this way.
I checked in at the reception and am guided to a conference room. This time, I'm interviewing with a reasonably large apparel company called Sakura Blooms. The company primarily focuses on products for women and has an overwhelmingly female workforce. There are only a few male employees, and it seems I'm the only one taking the interview this time. Was it because I was applying for a mid-career position? But the job posting said they were hiring 3 people. As my anxiety grew, the door of the conference room where I was suddenly opened with a click.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's start the interview.
The one who appeared was a man whose name tag said Carter. I was initially surprised by his attitude as he entered, but what shocked me even more was his appearance. A gray suit that you can easily find at a big box store. It was so wrinkled, I wondered how it could have been stored to get that way. Even without a close look, it was obvious the buttons were coming undone. And the tie, where on earth do they sell those? It was a strikingly bright fluorescent pink, with a cute illustration of a chick with large, eyelashed eyes right in the center. Where on earth do they sell such ties? Cart staring at his tie, he flashed a grin and said, "This tie. It's unique and stylish, isn't it?" I could only offer a polite smile. His hair was slicked down, either with too much wax, or perhaps he hadn't bathed since yesterday. There was a distinct lack of cleanliness about him. I was quite shocked by Carter's reaction. Then he looked at me and sighed. When I was suddenly asked, "You're a guy, right?" I could only reply with a hesitant yes, I am. I wondered if he mistook me for a woman.
Do you understand that our brand primarily focuses on women's clothing, and still you applied for the job?
Yes, of course.
Why? There are plenty of men's brands out there. Why did you specifically apply to ours?
Oh, is the interview already starting? With that thought, I shared the reasons for my application that I had come up with myself. I'm interested in working at your company to deepen my knowledge about clothing and fashion.
Oh, okay.
A remarkably interested response came back. Is this an interview? What's going on here?
What other brands do you know? You're not just aware of our brand, are you?
Certainly not. If your company targets the same demographic, Heartwarming and Earthshop have recently become popular. They offer products with a casual yet work-appropriate design, incorporating sophisticated colors and styles. If we target a slightly older age group, Ing is popular for its wide range of colors and ease of reuse. When I answered, Carter showed a momentary surprised expression. He had a look on his face as if he didn't expect I had been studying women's apparel brands. It's a job interview, so you should study for it.
Well, you should be able to answer that much. Now, let's talk about your work history. What's your work history?
Yes, I've been overseas until recently. I've experienced various jobs in France and Italy.
Full-time positions. Your resume shows a blank in the work history section.
Oh yes. I mainly worked part-time jobs.
So, is this your first job interview then?
Yes. This is my first job interview for a full-time position. When I answered honestly, Carter looked at me with complete disdain in his eyes.
You were abroad, but you still end up as a part-timer. Were you just living off your parents' money?
No, it's not like that. I had worked part-time jobs during my university years to save money for my overseas experience.
You know, people who say they were mostly abroad are kind of loose compared to us Americans. It's a bit worrying. They might be doing their job with a lack of diligence, and I can't trust them.
Well, I'm also an American, but…
And you, talking all high and mighty about having been abroad, but that's nothing to brag about. I've thought from your appearance that you're a bit weak, and lately there have been too many guys like you. Men should have a strong presence.
And he starts eloquently describing his ideal image of a man. I've been listening, but it's starting to become a bit of a confusing conversation. What on earth am I being told?
Besides, I hate to say it, but for a guy to actively pursue a company targeted at women, it seems like you have ulterior motives. If you have nothing like that, then prove it.
Even if you tell me to prove it. How am I supposed to prove that? You're a guy working in a women's apparel company, aren't you? So, we're in the same boat, aren't we? I thought to myself. But before I could say anything, Carter chuckled and said, "What's the matter? Can't answer that." I realized it was hopeless. Even if I miraculously passed this interview, I couldn't work with someone like him. Feeling that way, I briefly said, "I've had enough. I don't want to answer anymore," and stood up. I turned my back to Carter and began walking towards the door of the room.
What? Running away? That's what these overseas folks are like.
He sneered at me with a smirk on his face. He was a typical unpleasant person. I wondered if he was trying to provoke me and make me react somehow. Even if I was overseas, I didn't expect to be treated like this. I can't work with someone so discriminatory and biased. I declined a job offer, I said, and left the meeting room. As I left, I could hear him still saying, "Young people these days are so arrogant." The next day, as anticipated, I received a rejected notification for the job. My first job interview in the United States had ended abruptly. A few days later, I found myself at my mother's favorite high-qualified restaurant. My mother had returned to the United States, and of course, my father had returned as well. Now, 3 of us are living together in our family home. This restaurant is my mother's favorite. She conducts business negotiations while dining at this restaurant, especially when it's so important she can't fail. She also dines out here with my father for special occasions.
Unfortunately, Dad couldn't make it, but I'm happy you're here, so let's enjoy this circumstance.
My mom hasn't been to this site for a while, and she's excited to be here again. Additionally, my father couldn't make it because he had a deadline for his work.
Well, sometimes you don't get a job offer after an interview. Don't lose heart. Based on what I heard, the problem is on their side.
My mother said with a smile, and I realized her intention. I see. She brought me here to cheer me up and encouraged me after I'd been brooding about that interview for the past few days. What a wonderful mother I have. I was deeply moved. I said I would decline it by myself, but the truth is, I was a little down about it. Fun time flies. I thoroughly enjoyed the prefix menu at the restaurant and the precious time with my mother. It's on me, so go ahead and wait for a sec outside, my mother said. And as I followed her instructions and changed my shoes at the restaurant's entrance, I saw some people coming in. Among them, there was a person wearing a familiar tie. It was a tie with a glaring fluorescent pink background and a cute illustration of a chick with long eyelashes and big eyes in the center. I had seen that tie recently. Carter. Today, he's wearing a slightly more decent suit than the other day, but he still can't cover the wrinkles, you know. More than that, the tie is way too conspicuous and has an incredible presence. That chick even appeared in the dream of the day I interviewed. It's likely to come out again tonight. Then it seemed like Carter also noticed me. He said, well, isn't this Mark, the overseas returnee we interviewed the other day? What a coincidence, being able to come to such a nice place on a weekday. Overseas returnees indeed stand out, huh? Have you gotten missing American food? Did you remember how to munch on that? He was clearly picking a fight with me. That last part sounded like baby talk. Don't bother me. It's so annoying even just he remembers my name. As I was pondering what to say, my mom appeared and said, "Sorry for keeping you waiting, Mark. I got a souvenir for Dad. It took time a bit. Sorry about that." In her hand, she's holding a paper bag. This is probably the sushi from this restaurant. While I was eating, she said, "Dad is also a big fan of the sushi here. Should we buy some as souvenirs?" It seems like she really ordered it. "Is this Mark's mother?" Carter suddenly asked. Against my hope, she replied, "Yes, that's right." "Why?" As I supposed. May I ask, is it you who paid the restaurant bill?" He suddenly asked my mother. What's going on? What is he trying to say? Yes, that's right. My mother replied. "Hi, I knew it." He exclaimed dramatically, sighing deeply. Then he looked at me and said, "Is dining on your mom yummy, Mark, the jobless?" Furthermore, he said to my mother, "It's no good even for you. If you spoil this jobless guy, he will turn out worse." My mother and I were left speechless. Carter himself had this attitude like he was saying something great, as sporting a smug look.
Mark, is this the person who interviewed you the other day?
Oh yeah. I don't know why he's here. As my mother and I were secretly discussing this, my mother smiled and said, "Got it. Leave it to me." Oh, this mom's face is dangerous. Battle mode activated.
Excuse me, but who are you referring to as a jobless guy?
Of course, you know that's your son. You've really spoiled him to the core. It seems that your son tried to join our company, but unfortunately, he couldn't break out of being the jobless. Carter laughed loudly. My mother had a beaming smile on her face, but she was clearly radiating an aura of anger that was palpable. Even I, who was standing side by side, noticed it. Why doesn't he realize right in front of her?
"Carter, what's going on?"
I heard a male voice coming close. Looking in the direction of the voice, a man in a suit was approaching us. Compared to Carter, the suit is wrinkle-free and looks clean. and he's carrying off a suit in a color that suits him well. At first glance, I got the impression that he was someone in a higher position, like CEO.
President Adams, how are you today, sir?
Greeted Carter. Oh, he really is the president. In the next moment, the man addressed as the president looked at my mother and exclaimed, "President Harris."
Oh, President Adams, isn't it? It's been a while. I didn't expect to meet you before the upcoming meeting.
As my mother said this with a beaming smile, President Adams responded, "I would really appreciate your assistance in the upcoming meeting." While bowing graciously, President Adams, no matter how you look at it, appeared humble towards my mother, and the power dynamic was clearly in favor of my mother. President Adams looked at Carter and said, "Carter, offer your greetings. This lady is President Harris, the head of that striped group."
The Striped Group.
The Striped Group is a company that oversees dozens of apparel manufacturers in the United States. In fact, my mother is the president of the group, holding the position of the head of a so-called major company.
The Striped Group.
Oh, as I mentioned before, we're going to come under the management of them. Make sure to greet her properly.
Really? That's news to me. I asked my mom.
That's right. Starting from this spring, we're in the process of moving that forward now. Oh, President Adams, this is my son.
I greeted President Adams in person.
Are you President Harris's son? I'm always grateful for her help. It's a bit embarrassing, but our business has many vulnerabilities and, well, to cover those, she's taking care of it.
I see. Although it looked like the business was doing well from the outside, it seemed that it wasn't the case in reality. And so far, Carter had remained silent. When I looked at him, his face was turning paler than before. As President Adams said, "What's the matter, Carter? Why don't you greet?" My mother cut in with her words. No, it's quite all right. We already exchanged greetings earlier with this gentleman, so there's no need. Besides, Carter is one of your employees, isn't he? My son actually had an interview at your company recently, and it seems they took good care of him," my mother said with a beaming smile.
Wow, really? Does that mean your son will be joining our company? That's fantastic news, and it's great to have such strong talent on board.
No, it seems my son actually declined the offer on his own. I only heard about it from him, but it seems he didn't quite meet the standards over there, according to the person who conducted the interview.
Really? But your son's been overseas.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, it seems he didn't meet the standards of yours, so he didn't seem to have a connection with your company. During the interview, and even just now, the interviewer referred to my son as a jobless.
What? Did our Carter really say something like that?
Yes, well, it's true that my son is unemployed while he's job hunting, so he's somewhat like a jobless, but it's a bit much for someone to say that, and it makes me wonder about the company's future.
When my mother deliberately said that, President Adams turned pale too and glared at Carter.
Carter, how dare you?
No, President Adams, this is...
Carter seems to be trying to come up with an excuse, but his face is turning increasingly pale, and he's completely stumbling over his words, repeating, "It's not like what you think." If you're interviewed with that kind of attitude, I think no one would want to work. Here, I chimed in. I don't know how much President Adams is aware, but Sakura Blooms Inc. has a reputation, not in a good way, on the job information sites. Some reviews mentioned that there was a harsh interviewer, and even if you passed the interview, C in the HR department has been getting trashed in reviews. Also, the turnover rate was unusually high. That's why I was curious about what it was like. So I decided to try it out, and after that interview, I understood. Probably, they had been rejecting people in a similar manner all along, I guess.
For the past few years, we've been short-handed in a way that's rarely seen. I always thought we had a shortage of manpower, but it seems it was because of him. I left all these things to Carter, so I didn't know anything about the situation. I'm terribly sorry for that.
President Adams lowered his head towards me. Judging by his attitude, it seemed he really didn't know about the interview. He's not at fault. Even seeing President Adams in this situation, the Carter in question remained silent the whole time. President Adams is someone to look up to, so Carter, why don't you apologize to? Seeing the situation get out of hand, I couldn't help but speak up. Suddenly, Carter burst out, "You lazy bum. Don't get smart with someone older than you," and lunged at me. But I easily dodged him with a quick move. Carter slid smoothly and suddenly tumbled onto the floor.
Well, President Adams, if this person isn't dealt with properly, our company might not be able to welcome yours.
Laughing merrily, my mother spoke, and President Adams nodded solemnly in response.
Of course, Carter, you're fired as of today.
Carter, lying down, lifted his face, but his complexion had already turned ashen.
Oh dear. Oh my, it seems like you've become a jobless, dear.
My mother chuckled at that. A few days later, an article appeared in the financial newspaper with the headline, "Women's apparel manufacturer Sakura Blooms Inc. joins the Stripes Group." In addition, several other apparel and textile companies were acquired, leading to more companies coming under the management of the Striped Group. Generally, joining a group doesn't change the management lineup of each company, but I heard that Carter was the only one who got fired. Apparently, the reason why Carter conducted interviews in such that manner was simply because he disliked anyone who seemed more competent or superior to himself. He wanted to fulfill the feeling of "I'm the one choosing here." President Adams really trusted Carter, so he left all personnel matters to him, only requiring retroactive reports. "I'll be more involved from now on," he said, reflecting on the situation. Afterward, I ended up joining my mother's company, the Striped Group, as an employee. However, I didn't give up on my own dream. In fact, I was more determined than ever to pursue my dream by working in this company, learning about clothing, and dealing with customers in the stores. A few more years passed, and I handed in my resignation to my mother, who was the president. "President Harris, I'd like to resign." When I said that firmly, my mother looked at me.
Do you already have plans for the next one?
"I want to pursue my own dream. I've made plans for it."
Good. You should do what you love. Work hard, and I'll support you.
With those words from my mother, I left the Striped Group. And then, I finally launched my dream brand called Kalilo. I handled everything from design to sales by myself. In fact, during the 5 years I spent studying in France and Italy after graduating from university, I underwent training to become a designer. While studying at university's economics department, I had continued to think about clothing design on my own and even made clothes. However, I wanted to learn in a more formal setting. So right after graduating, I decided to go to France. Thanks to my mother's connections, I was introduced to world-renowned designers in both France and Italy, where I worked part-time and continued to study. The reason I had no work history was because of this background. I studied design in France for 3 years and Italy for 2 years each, gaining recognition from my respective mentors, and then returned to the United States. I cannot thank my mother enough. She had introduced me to my design mentors, and I'm also grateful to my father for allowing me to pursue my passion. Actually, I wanted to learn from another company before starting my own brand, so I applied to Sakura Blooms Inc. Now let's just forget about that. My knowledge of business from university turned out to be quite useful when I started my own brand. I realized that there were no wasted experiences in life. The concept of my brand is break down gender barriers. It's about wearing whatever you like regardless of gender. If a man wanted to wear a skirt, he should be able to, and women should be free to wear men's clothing. I embedded these ideas into my clothing designs. In line with this era, we plan to primarily use materials that consider SDGs and initially limited to online sales. In fact, I didn't have enough money to open a store. To my delight, my brand seemed to align with the current social climate, and I quickly gained attention. I received heartwarming comments from consumers like, "Thanks to Kali Ilo, I've learned the joy of choosing the clothes I love, and I'm happy to have more options in clothing selection." Furthermore, after just 1 year, I was able to open a real store in a local shopping mall, and I could afford to hire employees. While it was a store in a rural area, more people came with the intention of buying my clothes. I was also fortunate enough to be featured in many fashion magazines, both domestically and internationally, which further boosted my brand's sales. Having established an apparel brand, my next dream was to participate in Paris Fashion Week. I have been to Paris Fashion Week just once when I was a child, accompanied by my mother. The memory of that moment is still vividly etched in my mind. Glamorous clothing, makeup, and models strutting confidently. And finally, the designer who greets us. It was a dazzling world. At that moment, following my gut's instinct, I decided that someday I would see models wearing my designs on that same runway. That was the moment when I first dreamed of becoming a designer. I continued working towards that goal, and a few years later, my brand was finally able to participate in Paris Fashion Week. In that glamorous moment, my excitement soared as I realized I could participate. I went wild, shouting, "Woohoo!" And the whole day, the employees at the main store had a blast together. Of course, the next day I had a hangover. I ended up spending busy days every day preparing for Paris Fashion Week, but I didn't mind it at all because I believed my dream would come true. Rather, the feeling of enjoyment was dominant. I was often caught up in preparations, even staying overnight at the store. My parents were worried, but more than that, they warmly watch over me. Finally, the day of Paris Fashion Week has arrived. The show was a great success, and my brand became internationally famous. I was called to the runway by a model who was wearing clothes from my brand. While walking and waving my hand, I heard someone shout, "Mark." When I turned toward the voice, I found my parents there. My mother was waving her hands enthusiastically with a big smile, while my father stood beside her, looking a bit embarrassed, waving his hand timidly. I was touched by my mom's appearance there. Moreover, my father, who rarely appears in public, had come all this way for me. The fact made me so happy that I couldn't help but tear up. I realized that I want to stand here again and again next year, the year after, and for the years to come. I think that would surely be worth repaying my parents. My parents raised me with respect, letting me pursue my passions. I owe it to my parents for who I am today. To tell the truth, at one point, I almost gave up on my dream of becoming a designer when heading off to university. But now I'm here as a designer, launching my own brand. I realized that if you don't give up and keep putting in effort, dreams will come true. I believe that looking at things with rigid, outdated values in today's world is not beneficial for anyone. For example, concepts like being manly or being womanly probably won't hold in the future. Incorporating and embracing diversity is what gives rise to the potential and growth that follows. I pledge in my heart to continue creating fashion that embraces diversity and incorporates various elements in the future.
There's no seat for high school graduates like you in this event. A loser like you has no place here. Get the hell out of my face.
The director gave me a hearty and joyful smile and told me off. I have a lot of things I want to say, but I can't go against my boss, the director of the department. All I could do was to follow his orders. My name is Matt, I'm 27 years old. My mother passed away soon after my birth. Afterwards, I lived with my father until he died in a tragic accident at work. I was just a kid in elementary school when I was taken in by my paternal grandparents. However, the grandparents were involved in a car pileup accident, and they both died. I was in high school at the time, and all my relatives were talking behind my back, saying that Matt brings bad luck, and no one wanted to take me in. For a while, I lived alone in my grandparents' house. I wanted to give my grandparents who raised me such a comfortable life, so I studied hard to get into a good company in the future. But now my grandparents are no longer with me. Studying seems pointless now. Having lost all of my beloved family members, I was left feeling powerless and dropped out of university. However, I needed to earn a living, so I got a job at the local construction company and started working as a site worker. I worked without thinking until I was exhausted, and then went home to sleep. To forget my sorrow, I just kept repeating these empty days. Then, one day, something happened.
How about living with me?
It was my uncle from my mother's side who suddenly showed up at my grandparents' house and said that I had lost touch with my mother's side of the family after she died, and I had only met my uncle when I was little. I was confused at first when he suddenly offered me to live with him, but it seems that he is concerned about me.
You're still a child. You need to be under the care of an adult.
Uncle.
Besides, I've been living alone as a single man. I've always been lonely by myself. So I'd like to live together with Matt.
He said so and winked mischievously at me. Seeing him like that made me smile for the first time in a while, and I decided to move in with him. My uncle took good care of me. He provided me with everything I needed for clothing, food, and housing, and also gave me advice about work. The company I was working at paid low wages and had a high risk of injury, so he was worried about me and introduced me to a new job.
Your father died in an accident at work. As a father figure to you, I'm worried about you.
The company my uncle introduced me to was a major corporation where normally someone with just a high school diploma wouldn't be able to get a job. I was assigned to a sales department that was short-staffed and incredibly busy, almost desperate for extra hands. At first, the reaction from others was iffy. Why would a high school graduate join this company? I'll do my best not to cause any trouble. I had learned business manners from my uncle before joining the company and had done all the studying I could. I worked hard, taking full advantage of my knowledge and skills. Plus, the physical and mental strength I gained from my construction job also helped me as a salesperson. Gradually, I started to achieve results, and after a year, I had become a fully familiar member of the sales department. Once I became a member of the team, our company had a great atmosphere and was a comfortable place to work. I hope to keep working here until retirement. Feeling quite comfortable here, I've been thinking about continuing to work at this company for a long time to come. But then one day, an unexpected event occurred. It was early autumn, shortly after I turned 27. Our company's president was promoted to chairman, and the vice president was decided to be the new president. The aim seems to be to bring a fresh perspective into the company and strive for further corporate development. In line with this, there were changes in personnel within the company. The manager of the sales department I belong to has been transferred to a branch office.
My elderly mother lives alone in my hometown. I had requested a transfer to the local branch there for a while now, and it's been approved. I'm living and working with my mother from now on.
I see. It's sad, but please do your best there too. The manager was a good man that treated even me, who was a high school graduate, without discrimination. His transfer was a bit of a shock to me, but I can't just keep feeling down about it. The new manager for our sales department was appointed from the branch office's sales department. It seems that the candidates for the next manager, including the assistant manager and the section chief, are currently handling a significant project and have expressed a desire to defer any promotion.
I'm looking forward to working with you all.
The new director, Johnson, greeted us with a big smile. At first, I thought he would be friendly and approachable, but he...
Hey you, what's your highest level of education?
I graduated from a university.
You have a fairly decent educational background.
At our first meeting, Director Johnson unhesitatingly asked us about our educational backgrounds. I later learned he judged people by their academic qualifications and either completely ignored those who didn't meet his standards or subjected them to behavior bordering on power harassment. Of course, Director Johnson doesn't like people like me who graduated from high school.
You're a high school graduate. I can't believe it. How can someone with such a low-bottom education be in this company and in the head office's sales department? I was assigned to a branch office's sales department.
He ignored all my achievements and looked down on me simply for being a high school graduate. Whenever he opened his mouth, it was nothing but insults and foul language. I can count on one hand the number of times he's actually called me by my name, dumping his work on me and only taking achievements from me is his daily routine.
You should be grateful I even use a high school graduate like you.
His unbelievable actions and words made it seem like he didn't even regard me as human. Moreover, he started sabotaging my work to drive me out of the company. One day, something happened. I was preparing to visit a client where we were in the final stages of consultation. I was planning to use a projector for my presentation, so I packed a USB with the presentation data into my bag. However, why is the data gone? I realized at the last minute that all the data in the USB was deleted. I managed to receive the data, but we started the presentation much later than scheduled. Of course, this left a bad impression on the client. Despite my best efforts, the presentation didn't go well, and I returned to the company disheartened.
What's wrong with you? You look so depressed. Let me guess. Your presentation was a failure. It's no surprise. The presentations can't be done without data.
As Director Johnson said that with a smirk, I realized that he was the culprit. I didn't mind him disliking me, but I never expected him to go this far. I did everything I could to recover the lost time and managed to secure the contract. When I reported that the contract was finalized, Director Johnson had a look on his face that seemed to say he was not pleased.
You are getting cocky for a high school graduate.
His sharp gaze made me suspect he would repeat his actions. My premonition soon came true. I was heading to a party celebrating the new president's inauguration at the luxury hotel. However, I encountered Director Johnson outside the venue.
Why are you here?
Well, I was also invited to the party.
A useless high school graduate was invited. Wait here.
I wasn't allowed to enter the venue, so I had no choice but to wait outside. Sooner after, Director Johnson came back, holding my seat with both hands.
I don't know what the mistake was, but when I checked, there really was a seat for you. You know, trash like you doesn't belong here.
As he said so, he roughly put my seat down in the hallway.
There's no seat for high school graduates like you in this event. A loser like you has no place here. Get the hell out of my face.
Director Johnson grinned and said, I guess he really hates me. I realized that once again, it's impossible not to feel anything after being treated like this, but after all, he is still my boss. As I am just a general employee, I am not allowed to rebel outright. I understood it. I'm leaving now. With just that retort, I immediately turned on my heel and left the scene. However, just 10 minutes later, I received a call from Director Johnson, and I answered the phone with a frown on my face. Hello.
Come back here right now.
Do I need to come back? But you told me to go away, right? What is going on?
Just come back right now. It's an order from your boss.
Just then the call ended abruptly. I headed back to the party venue with a sigh. When I returned to the party venue, I saw the new president and his secretary, and there was Director Johnson with a pale face. I'm back, Director Johnson. What happened? When I spoke up, Director Johnson quickly turned towards me and showed a confused expression.
Well.
I let out a small sigh at Director Johnson's hesitant response. What's going on? I turned to the secretary instead of him and asked her. However, Instead of the secretary answering, the new president, who was standing next to her, spoke up first.
I heard this fool kick you out. Is that true, Matt?
Yes, sir, it's true, President. The new president smiled bitterly and replied to me,
Please call me Uncle Bob, like you always do. I accidentally revealed your true identity to this big fool earlier.
Hearing the whole story, I couldn't help myself but be dumbfounded. After kicking me out, as the start time of the party approached, Director Johnson was waiting outside the venue for the arrival of the new president. It seems he was trying to curry favor by greeting the new president before the other employees. But then,
President, I apologize, there's been a bit of trouble.
as the new president appeared, before Director Johnson could greet him, the secretary suddenly stepped forward.
Problem? What happened?
Actually, the chairman's son is missing. We checked and his seat itself is gone.
Matt isn't here yet. What do you mean his seat is gone?
Director Johnson's eyes widened at the words of the new president.
No seat for Matt. Could it be that?
Finding it hard to believe his own speculation, Director Johnson asked the new president,
Is this Matt from the sales department we're talking about?
The president glanced at his secretary and replied to Director Johnson as if he had no choice.
Yes, Matt from the sales department is the chairman's son. The chairman and I have been close personally for years, and I've known his son, Matt, for a long time.
Indeed, I've had a long relationship with him. My uncle had legally adopted me and taken me in. However, my uncle had no experience in raising children, and at first he struggled with how to care him. That's when he consulted with Uncle Bob, who was the vice president at the time. We had a good private relationship, and he had a son who was about my age, so he gave my uncle various advice. Uncle Bob was concerned about me, frequently visited my house. He was amiable and kind, and with his help, my uncle and I became closer. I joined my uncle's company, but I didn't want to be treated specially, so I kept my relationship with him a secret. On the day I first called my uncle Dad, he apparently rushed to report it to Uncle Bob right away.
I got a call out of the blue from the president in tears, wondering what was going on.
I vividly remember that I apologized to the smiling Uncle Bob, turning bright red with embarrassment, saying, "My father has caused you trouble."
It was my request that he attend a party this time, but where was his seat gone? Oh, by the way, only a few executives know about this, so please keep it under wraps.
The moment he heard Uncle Bob's words, Director Johnson's face turned pale blue. Afterwards, Uncle Bob and the secretary confronted Director Johnson, who was acting strangely. They learned he had put my seat in the hallway and sent me away. So that's what happened.
Why didn't you tell me?
Director Johnson, with a mix of anger and confusion, confronted me. I grimaced and kept my distance from him. I asked to keep it a secret when I joined the company because if people knew I was the chairman's son, they would favor me. I wanted to be promoted on my own merits. Plus, if it got out, it would attract troublesome people like you, Director Johnson. I pointed out, leaving him speechless. But maybe I should have been upfront from the beginning. Then you, Director Johnson, wouldn't have resorted to borderline bullying behavior towards me.
Did I bully you?
Hearing my words, Uncle Bob's face contorted. Deciding it was time to come clean, I revealed all the instances of bullying I had suffered from Director Johnson. As I shared my story, Uncle Bob's expression began to mix with anger. The secretary standing next to him also grimaced significantly.
I can't believe we have someone of such low caliber in our company. Before judging others by their education, you should reflect on your own character.
Faced with the secretary's relentless words, Director Johnson hung his head.
Indeed, I heard you were promoted from the branch office due to your achievements, but from Matt's story, it seems those were not your own.
No, it's not like that. I mean,
Director Johnson's gaze wandered around with cold sweat dripping down his face. And when his gaze turned to me, he tried to cling on to me with a goofy smile on his face.
I was good to you, right? I gave you work and was tough at times, but it was all to help you grow.
Disgusted by his unconvincing excuses, I raised my hand to cut off Director Johnson mid-sentence. You didn't delegate work to me. You dumped it on me. And then, calling me a high school graduate, bottom of the barrel, incompetent, you've constantly ridiculed me. How can anyone grow with such horrible verbal abuse? Where in the world can you find someone who could? I've never felt you were good to me.
Wait, please. My dream is to be promoted to an executive position.
I don't care about that. Then, I pulled something out of my pocket.
What's that?
This is a voice recorder. I've been recording your harassment at work. I was preparing to bring this to HR, but it seems that won't be necessary now. When I glanced at Uncle Bob, he nodded firmly at me.
Let's take this matter to HR immediately. It seems our reform has some inappropriate decisions.
While Uncle Bob said so, he glared at Director Johnson with cold eyes. That must have been the final straw. Director Johnson's face turned from blue to white, and he collapsed weakly to the ground. After that, Uncle Bob immediately contacted HR as he had promised. As a result, Director Johnson not only received a stern warning from Uncle Bob, but also directly from Uncle who heard the story. He was then demoted and sent back to the branch office because he was not allowed to stay in the same department with me. The story of his demotion due to bullying had spread throughout the branch office, and I heard that he no longer had a place in the company. Having lost his position and everything else, Director Johnson apparently looked utterly exhausted. The new president also emphasized to keep my identity as the chairman's son confidential if I wanted to remain in the company. No one would believe Director Johnson anymore. Meanwhile, I've been working comfortably in the now peaceful sales department. The new director took over after wrapping up a project as the assistant head. Following that, the section chief became the assistant head, and I was promoted to a senior position. I plan to work even harder than before and aim for further promotions.
My name is John Smith, a 55-year-old man. I work long hours every day, from early morning until late at night. Most household responsibilities fall to my wife, and I feel sorry about that. But there are things at work only I can do, and I feel a lot needs to be done, so my company has become like a second home. I pretty much just go home to sleep, but my wife never complains. I guess I owe her a nice dinner for our next wedding anniversary. She's been handling the house all this time and had put burden on her a lot too. But thanks to her, I can work so hard. Job hunting season is just around the corner. Our company, Walk Walk Confectionery, is eager to recruit talented people. During this season, the HR department is super busy with their regular work plus recruitment. They're all working their tails off, making documents and such. Creating handouts and slides for presentations for job hunting students seems tough. As a well-known large corporation, we attract a lot of applicants. Our company is popular among students, so many are eager to join. We offer good benefits, and the starting salary for college graduates is about $2,800 a month, which is significantly higher than many other companies. Even graduates with advanced degrees rarely start over $2,500, so our offer for undergrads is exceptionally good. That's why our info sessions are large-scale, often renting out big halls. Not only HR, but also our sales department staff often speak as senior employees at the sessions. The product development folks explain in detail about what kind of candies we are popular and how they are flavored. The students listen attentively and take notes diligently. They all look so smart. Then, HR's recruitment activities kicked into high gear. I glanced at the resumes, and they were all from top-notch universities. Only students from prestigious universities are present. For example, students from national universities like T University, and from private universities like K, W, and J universities. I never went to college, but I imagine these students must have worked incredibly hard to get there. I mean, their SAT scores are all above 1400. I learned about these standards as an adult and realized how tough it is to score above 1400. I probably wouldn't have scored even 1000. My high school wasn't great and nobody really went to college. Plus, my family was dirt poor, so I couldn't have afforded going to college even if I was smart enough. We were a big, poor family living in a rental house, 5 siblings including me. My dad hardly ever worked. He mostly spends any money he made by a temp-day job on gambling. He was the kind of person who would either be at a casino or a jog racing track. So, after graduating from high school, I worked to support my siblings. I was the eldest brother and wanted them to get an education. While thinking about all this, I went through the documents. These students probably never had to struggle like that. Sure, they worked hard for their educations, but they didn't have to struggle for their families. Getting into a national university like T University usually means coming from a wealthy family that can afford tutoring. And if it's a private university, the family is definitely well off. It made me feel a bit miserable, so I stopped dwelling on the past. Then, the successful candidates joined our company. They all looked smart right off the bat. The new employees at the orientation were all dressed up in brand new suits. The suites weren't their recruitment ones, so they probably ordered new ones. It felt like they were taking their first steps from being students to becoming working adults. A guy named Brown, representing the new employees, gave a speech. He passionately talked about what he wanted to do in sales. His ambitious face looked so dependable. I'm glad to have such enthusiastic young people joining us. And then there was a woman named Davis who also gave a greeting. She said she wanted to work in development in the science department. Whether Brown and Davis get into their desired departments is uncertain. but usually their preferences are considered. Right before this orientation started, I was working in the company's factory. So I rushed over wearing my work clothes. I was the only one in work attire, standing out quite a bit, and I heard comments like, he's so dirty, and is he homeless or what? True, my work clothes were filthy. From fixing machines used for candy packaging, I was covered in grime. But did they really need to say that? I didn't come in dirty clothes on purpose. I just didn't have time to change. I thought it was better to show up on time as is than be late. When I was about to go on stage, Brown and Davis started giggling. Then they bombarded me with unbelievable comments.
Wait, what? You comes to an orientation looking like that? I thought some homeless guy wandered in. You're so dirty and stinky. Eck, the smell is horrible. Disgusting.
Yay, I thought he was homeless too. Why is there someone in work clothes here? We didn't join this company to talk to bottom-level workers. We, the chosen elites, wouldn't bother listening to a lowly worker.
Right, I graduated from K University.
And I'm from W University's science program, even finished grad school.
So, we really need this person in work clothes to leave. It's smelly. Please go away. Can't stand the stench of work clothes.
But
Goodbye, low-level worker.
The hall went silent. I stepped down from the stage and decided to leave. Was it necessary to go that far just because I was dressed dirty? I might have been at fault too, but thinking about their faces just irritates me. Even if they are elite university graduates, it's a waste if they have such twisted personalities. What's the point of education then? To look down on others? Surely not. They went to university to learn and become useful to society in the future. Their parents would cry if they knew how they turned out. Maybe their parents have twisted characters too. If that's the case, they can't be saved. The next day, I unusually dressed in a suit for work. I don't usually wear a suit, but I had an important appointment today. Feels kind of stiff, thinking that I headed to the office, planning to start work. But first, I had something to discuss with the new employees. I needed to speak in front of everyone, so I had been practicing in my head repeatedly. I'm a bit shy, so I didn't want to embarrass myself. Well, where should I start? Ahem.
Well, the dirty old man from yesterday is in a suit.
Dressing up in a suit doesn't change anything. What's he thinking?
Brown and Davis were giggling at me again. I started to feel embarrassed and could feel my face getting red. So I'd like to talk about work. First, about me.
Really? We don't care about your story. We didn't join here to listen to some dirty old man. You think you look better in a suit, but did you forget about yesterday? Coming to an orientation in such dirty attire, totally out of place. Seriously, what were you thinking?
Exactly. Never thought we'd see someone so dirty here. You might look decent today, but you're just a dirty worker, right? We don't care about your story. We really don't want to listen to a bottom-level worker like you. Please leave.
But I have something to say.
Why should we listen to you? Are you underestimating us elites? This is why I can't stand people from the bottom. They just don't get it.
Right? Typical of the bottom, not listening to others.
Then the department head and manager turned pale. The head said,
What are you saying? Aren't you the ones not listening? This man is our CEO.
Wait, what? The CEO?
How could this be?
What were you thinking, saying such things to the CEO? Saying he's dirty? How could you say that so easily?
But yesterday, he came in dirty work clothes. Anyone would think he was just some factory worker. I've never heard of a CEO wearing work clothes.
Exactly. No one would think someone dressed like that was the CEO. It's not our fault. It's misleading for the CEO to dress like that.
I'm really disappointed in you too. You graduated from prestigious universities and have excellent grades. I thought you'd be impressive inside and out, but it seems your characters are twisted.
But, well,
How could you say that?
Johnson, the department head, stood up for me. Then Miller, the manager, also expressed his indignation towards Brown and Davis. However, Brown and Davis showed no remorse. I had hoped they would change their attitude once they knew I was the CEO, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Instead, they blamed me for my misleading attire. I admit that my appearance in work clothes probably didn't make me seem like a CEO. There's a stereotype that the head of a large corporation wouldn't be caught doing manual labor in overalls. Maybe in a small or medium-sized business, but not at a top company like Wok Wok Confectionery. No one would have guessed that the CEO would be dressed like that. It seems Brown and Davis aren't very remorseful. They don't think they did anything wrong.
You're right, they're not repentant at all. They probably don't want to admit they're wrong, as it would be like acknowledging a failure. Anyone can make mistakes, but if they had just apologized, maybe they could have been forgiven.
Let's have them do that task.
The special task?
I think that's a good idea.
what are you planning to make us do?
You're not going to make us do something scary, are you?
It's nothing scary, just an exciting job. You'll start by making candies. Just try your best, it's really fun.
I wanted sales, but I guess I'll do it. It's probably easy work, right? I might fall asleep. I'm bored already. After all, I can handle anything. I'm an elite.
I might fall asleep too. Probably some boring task like packing candy boxes or breaking eggs.
Come on, follow me to the factory. We'll provide you with aprons and hats, so please use those.
Heck, going into a factory feels so low class. Training here, really, if my parents knew, they'd be so disappointed. I mean, I graduated from K University, and now I have to work in a factory.
I graduated with science degree and now I have to work inside a factory. It's surely boring.
Stop complaining and keep up. We just received a big shipment of raw materials.
We'll help out too, boss. That product will surely be a hit.
Really? That's great. Everyone usually hates it. Brown and Davis looked a bit tense, probably wondering what they were about to be put through. We entered the factory. We put our aprons and hats and carefully disinfected our hands and put on rubber gloves. I brought out a box containing today's raw material. Crickets. They were dead, of course, but when Brown and Davis saw the massive amount of crickets, they screamed.
What is this?
UW. Gross. There are so many.
These are for our cricket crackers. As food shortages become a bigger issue, our company is researching insect-based foods. You know the famous brand The Simple is Best has been selling cricket crackers, right? I tried them and thought they were pretty good, kind of like shrimp crackers, but with a unique taste. So we're working on improving them. Here, try this prototype cracker I just made. how is it? Please, have a taste. I offered them freshly made cricket crackers, but both Brown and Davis stubbornly refused to take them. I was a bit sad since I believed our crackers were tastier than the ones from the renowned brand.
How can you expect us to eat this? It's disgusting.
This is inedible.
But you know, crickets are being eaten all over the world now. They're a valuable protein source.
If we run out of other foods, we might have no choice.
Even then, I'd rather starve than eat something like this.
Well, if you won't eat it, can you at least help make today's batch of cricket crackers? Right, boss? We need to finish them today for shipment tomorrow, don't we?
Yes, that's right. Please, help us out.
No way. Absolutely not.
Come on, just pick up these crickets.
Ugh, gross. It's looking at me.
No, it's dead. It's fine.
Here, Davis, try this.
Oh, don't put it in my hand. Gross. Help me.
Brown and Davis screamed non-stop, eventually throwing the crickets away and running off somewhere. It was a shame. I wanted to give them the opportunity to help make our new cricket crackers. Young people these days are so delicate. They probably never played with bugs as kids. Growing up in a concrete jungle, that's understandable. Growing up in a rural area, catching bugs was a daily activity for me as a kid. I always filled a basket with various insects, and I even remember getting scolded by my parents when a praying mantis egg hatched at home. I wonder if kids these days still do things like that. Maybe that's why, as an adult, I'm not scared of insects. Sure, I hate those shiny black roaches, but crickets, they're kind of cute. Though calling them cute while turning them into crackers might seem a bit crazy in some sense. But considering the potential future food shortages, I thought it was important to develop a tasty and easy-to-eat cricket crackers. The prototypes I've been working on are even more delicious than others on the market. It might sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but they're closer to shrimp crackers in taste, crispy, and easy to eat. If you close your eyes while eating them, you wouldn't guess they're made of crickets. After all, they don't look anything like their original form, so there shouldn't be much aversion. In fact, the cricket crackers sold by the major brand The Simple is Best are popular and look like peppered crackers.
They ran off. It's a shame. They could have been part of this new product launch.
Well, they probably learned their lesson. They were so arrogant, but by the end, they looked like they were about to cry.
Did we go too far? Well, it wasn't harassment. Anyway, we planned to have some of the new employees help with the cricket crackers, so it worked out.
They might be crying in the bathroom right now.
So delicate, getting spooked by crickets. Well, we need to finish up quickly to meet tomorrow's launch. We'll help. Let's get to work.
But don't you have other tasks? Are you sure you can help?
Of course. You're betting the company's future on these cricket crackers, right? You've been working so hard to make them the next big hit. You don't have to do it alone. We're here to help.
Then let's start working, please. So, Johnson, Miller, and I started making the cricket crackers. As we worked hard, others joined in to help. And thankfully, we managed to meet the deadline for tomorrow's delivery. The finished crackers were crispier and tastier than others on the market. Resembling shrimp crackers, I was confident these would sell well. Initially, there might be some aversion. But if someone starts spreading the word like, these crackers are surprisingly good, they could become a hit. With the internet, word of mouth spreads quickly. You never know what will catch on, so I decided to leave it to the customers' tastes. After finishing our work at the factory, we returned to the main office. I noticed that Brown and Davis were missing and assumed they had left, but it turned out they had quit. We don't want to stay in such a gross place. They had said, whether crickets are gross is subjective, but for them, it must have been traumatic. However, I had planned to have someone help with the task anyway, so it would just happen to be them. It wasn't harassment, just a lack of fit. So, I decided to forget about them. But it made me wonder what they planned to do after quitting so suddenly. With that kind of mindset, they're unlikely to last anywhere. Nowadays, job hopping is more common. But usually, you need to stick it out for at least a year or 3 to make it meaningful. I was anxious about the launch of the cricket crackers. We had made so many. If they didn't sell, it would be a waste, not just of the crickets, but also of the efforts of Johnson and Miller. But to my relief, the crackers started selling well. They were placed in a variety store, and it seemed young people were buying them. They even posted on social media, cheap and great for snacks with alcohol. There are 3 flavors of cricket crackers: salt, curry, and tomato chili. That makes them more palatable than the simpler varieties from other brands. The salt flavor is akin to shrimp crackers, the curry flavor resembles curry crackers, and the tomato chili was inspired by tacos. They were a big hit because they paired well with alcohol. They sold so quickly that we couldn't keep up with production. I was there wearing an apron, diligently making cricket crackers. Additionally, our factory halts machinery every 3 days for maintenance. During those times, I wear work clothes because I get dirty with oil while thoroughly cleaning the machines. Regular maintenance is essential when handling food, as any contamination would be a major issue and could jeopardize the company's survival. Alright, let's work hard on today's maintenance. We have to start production again tomorrow, so it needs to be clean. Let's start here, I said as I got under the machinery to begin cleaning. Despite regular cleaning, running the machines for 2 days straight does accumulate a fair amount of dirt. I meticulously clean to ensure we deliver delicious snacks to everyone. It's a tough job. Crawling in there can cause back pain, and looking up strains your neck and shoulders. Then Johnson, the department head, and Miller, the manager, came rushing in. What's going on? I wondered as I crawled out of the machinery, only to hear some incredible news.
Boss, listen to this. A major German supermarket wants to buy our cricket crackers.
What? Really?
Yes, it's Dostco Wholesale in Germany. They've contacted us about producing large packs for their warehouse-style stores. Isn't that amazing?
A message from Dostco. But why?
Turns out the chairman of Dostco was in Japan incognito recently with his wife for a vacation. During that time, they happened to buy our cricket crackers at a store and loved them. You've done it, boss. We're expanding into Germany.
I can't believe our cricket crackers will launch us into Germany. It's fantastic. We're going to be very busy, but we'll work hard together. We're with you all the way, boss.
Thank you. I never imagined cricket crackers would take us into Germany. This is all thanks to your support. Let's keep pushing and thriving together. I'm relying on you.
Yes.
Please, count on us.
Our cricket crackers from Wok Wok Confectionery had been a hit in Japan, but I never expected an order from a major German supermarket. This supermarket, Dostco Wholesale, specializes in large quantities in warehouse-style stores. I had been to Costco in Japan once. I remember going with my German friend to do a barbecue or something, and everything on display there was big-sized, massive cakes, large meat chunks, and huge bags of chips that seemed impossible to finish in one sitting. They wanted our cricket crackers bigger than those sold in Japan, so I needed to figure out the right size. I trusted Johnson to handle the market research and sizing. Johnson and Miller conducted market research for selling our cricket crackers in Germany. Cricket crackers weren't very popular there yet, but there seemed to be a latent interest in insect-based foods. However, many people, similar to Japan, had a strong aversion to them, so they suggested making the crackers more visually appealing with colors. German cereals, for example, are very colorful, with shocking pinks and blues. Germans seem to like colorful snacks. I decided to travel to Germany myself to do some research and get German snacks as a reference. I stayed at a luxury hotel called German Stay and tried various snacks I bought. They all have strong flavors. However, making the cricket crackers too flavorful, like adding cheddar cheese flavor, might lose their unique taste. That would be completely different from what the Costco chairman had enjoyed in Japan. He liked the cricket crackers sold in Japan, so there must be a hint there. Upon returning from Germany, I brought a large assortment of snacks to our factory and shared them with everyone. Everyone agreed with me the flavors were a bit too strong. The chairman wanted something more authentically Japanese, so cheddar cheese or taco flavors probably wouldn't work. They're too German. I was pondering what to do when I noticed Johnson's plum-flavored tablets. Recently, he has been trying to quit smoking, and I guess he eats tablets occasionally when he feels the need. Seeing those plum-flavored tablets, I thought, this is it. That's it. How about plum flavor? Plum-flavored potato chips exist and it feels very Japanese.
Plum flavor could be slightly salty and easy to eat, maybe even popular for its sourness.
I never expected to get inspiration from Johnson's tablets. You are brilliant, Hoss.
It was just happened to be. So, plum flavor is settled. What about the other flavors? Simple salt is good, but for something more uniquely Japanese.
How about the soy sauce flavor? It's very Japanese and might be well received.
That's a great idea. Soy sauce flavor has that salty kick and should be popular. Actually, I have a foreign friend who puts soy sauce on everything after discovering it in Japan and loving its taste.
Interesting. Let's go with that. What should the third flavor be? We're planning to launch 3 flavors in Germany, so we need to decide on the last one.
Natto flavor. No, that's not right. How about sashimi flavor? No, that doesn't exist.
Sushi flavor. That's not quite right either.
That's it.
What? Sushi flavor? You mean the taste of sushi rice?
No, a seafood flavor. The taste of Japanese seafood. Japanese seafood is delicious, right? I'm sure this will be popular.
Well, what an unexpected turn. Our silly ideas lead to a flavor decision. You're truly an idea man, boss.
Oh, it wasn't just me. The hints came from Johnson and Miller. Thank you so much. You've really helped out. Now we can deliver our products to Costco. And so, we developed plum, soy sauce, and seafood-flavored cricket crackers for Germany. When these hit the shelves at Costco, they instantly became a popular item. I was surprised that cricket crackers could sell so well in Germany. Johnson, Miller, and I were thrilled and became even more enthusiastic about our work. Our sales were on a steady rise. and the company was flourishing more than ever before. The German version of our cricket crackers started being sold at Costco in Japan too. At first, I wondered who in Japan would buy such large quantities, but they became popular for parties. Being healthy and a good source of protein, they were especially popular among health-conscious people. We are a confectionery company, but I always wanted to support people's health. Snacks can be a stress reliever and offer relaxation when eaten occasionally. However, overindulgence can harm health, so as the president of a confectionery company, I felt responsible for this. That's why I am satisfied with making healthy and delicious products. It was a company I started with a lot of struggles after graduating from high school. There were times when nothing sold, and I think I caused trouble for my family. But with support from those around me, I managed to come this far. Some people may insult me, probably judging by appearances. I'm often in work clothes, so they might see me as lowly. But for me, these work clothes are like battle gear. When I wear them to maintain our important machines, I feel ready to work. Tomorrow and in the days to come, I'll continue to be busy. Orders have been flooding in from countries other than Germany.
At a wedding, the groom suddenly grabbed a plate of food and threw it on the floor. The sauce splattered loudly on the carpet.
Oops, my bad. Slipped my hand. Ha ha.
He said, looking down at me with a laughter, and announced to everyone,
My friend sitting here with us is a janitor. He's used to handling dirty stuff, so let's leave the cleanup to him. Please, janitor.
When I refused, the bride stood in front of me and said,
My husband called you society's trash. Ha ha. Don't you dare defy the elite trash.
Then, my wife appeared behind the bride and tapped her shoulder. With a big smile, she said,
I'll ask my dad to take away the groom's desk at his workplace.
Soon after, the bride and groom were hit with this shocking reality and collapsed to their knees. My name is Kyle Johnson, 26 years old. I lost my parents in an accident during my sophomore year of college. Overwhelmed by grief, I dropped out and was in despair. But with someone's help, I managed to recover and now work as a janitor. At 25, I married Kimberly, a banker of the same age and a graduate of a top university. She was in corporate sales at the branch, known for her agility and meticulous work, quickly improving sales performance, and was even rumored to be on the track for a female executive position.
I dream of working at the heart of America's economy.
She'd say, her eyes sparkling as she talked about her future. I always worried if someone with my education and job could make her happy. But Kimberly just laughed it off, saying such things never matters. I still remember vividly the day she tearfully accepted my proposal, as if it was yesterday. Even she had her weaknesses.
How is it?
Kimberly asked, sitting in front of me at the dinner table, intently watching me eat. The cream pasta she made, after coming home early from work and following a recipe video, wasn't great, to be honest. The pasta was overcooked, the sauce bland, and the broccoli too hard. But I was really happy with the effort she put into it, regardless of the taste. Yay, it's delicious. Trying to eat heartily without her noticing. However, Kimberly's face fell in disappointment.
Kyle, Your nose swells when you lie.
She pointed out. I quickly covered my nose with my hand.
Why? I followed the recipe exactly.
Seeing her so downcast, I couldn't help but laugh.
That's mean, laughing like that.
Kimberly pouted, puffing her cheeks at me. Sorry. I just thought it was cute. Even though you're good at your job and handle everything so effortlessly, cooking is your weak spot, ho. I said. She then crossed her arms and said thoughtfully,
You know, my parents are divorced, you know. I was raised by my busy mom who didn't cook very much. We mostly had deliveries or ate out, so I guess I never got interested in cooking. In other words, it's my dad's fault I can't cook.
Looking at my wife puffing her cheeks like that, I asked her something I'd always wondered. Do you see your father, Bob, often?
Just once when I started working at the bank. We talk on the phone a few times a year.
It's better to meet when you can. You never know when you won't be able to see someone again. I said, thinking of my late parents.
Kyle.
Kimberly placed her hand over mine on the table and said, I'll think about it. That day, I was at an office building for exterior cleaning, working with Martin, a 45-year-old senior janitor. It had been a while since I worked with him. Martin is a veteran janitor with a master-level building cleaning certification. The boss trusted him the most. The day's task was high-altitude work using ropes hung from the rooftop, known as swing stage work since it's like sitting on a swing. I wasn't particularly afraid of heights, but the risk of accidents from a single mistake had me tense.
Kyle, don't slack on checking your gear. The boss specifically asked me to make sure there are no accidents involving you. We can't let Kimberly become a young widow.
Got it. I took it, Martin's words to heart, and carefully proceeded with each task. After 5 hours, all the work was successfully completed. I was cleaning up the pylons and ropes from the restricted area, when suddenly someone called my name.
Johnson.
Startled, I turned to see Brandon Miller, a classmate from the same seminar in college. Miller, I exclaimed, removing my helmet in surprise. Miller looked me up and down, then sneered.
Seriously? You dropped out and became a janitor? That's wild. Ha ha.
Miller had always been like this, judging people by appearance, job, and income, associating only if it benefited him. Not surprising, but still annoying. What about you? What are you doing now? I asked, bundling the ropes with a sense of resignation.
Me? Oh, nothing much. Just a humble bank employee.
He said, making a point to show me his suit's collar and the bank's emblem. It was a familiar badge. That badge, it's from Kimberly's bank. Miller and Kimberly work at the same bank. I couldn't hide my shock, but Miller just smirked, enjoying the moment. Tough job, huh? I've got to go, I said, and was eager to leave before causing any trouble for Kimberly at work. Then Miller added,
Oh, by the way, I'm getting married next month. Lots of old college friends will be there. You should definitely come to the reception. Everyone will be thrilled.
Hearing that, I spat in disgust in my mind. Why on earth I would bother attending a wedding like yours? But I maintained composure, especially since he was Kimberly's colleague. It seemed best to keep things neutral for now, considering the current unclear nature of Brandon and Kimberly's relationship. Congratulations. I'd love to celebrate, but unfortunately. On second look, Miller's grin widened seeing my face. He must be thinking I was too ashamed of my background to attend an elite wedding and want to make me go out of my way to make excuses for my absence. Probably planning to make me the butt of jokes. Fine, if that's how it is, I'll show up with pride. I have nothing to be ashamed of in my life. I had lost my coolness by then, and declared with a smile, I'd be happy to attend. Surprised, Miller looked at me with eyes shining, like a hyena spotting prey. His mouth twisted into a wry grin, guess coming up with some humiliation for me at the reception in front of his elite group.
Great, I'll send an invite,
he said, leaving. I watched him go, already regretting my impulsive acceptance. Later, I received the invitation from Miller.
No way. Kyle, you know Brondon she Miller.
At night, when Kimberly got home, she saw an invitation addressed to me among the mail on the table. She spoke to me as I was preparing dinner in the kitchen. He was in the same seminar at college. He says he works at the same bank as you. Did you know that?
Know it? He's my peer. He transferred to our branch at the same time as me. We're working together in corporate sales. Look,
Kimberly said, pulling out a similar invitation from her bag and showing it to me. Are we both going to the same wedding reception? I regretted my decision to attend even more after learning that Miller and Kimberly were working in the same corporate sales department at the same branch.
it's a small world. I can't believe Miller is your friend. From now on, no matter how irritating he is, I'll try to build a better relationship.
Kimberly said reflectively while eating dinner. What do you mean by that? I asked, curious.
Well, actually,
Kimberly began to tell me about her experiences with Miller. He worked in the same corporate sales department, but was arrogant, looking down on colleagues because of his family background and education. This attitude disrupted team dynamics and worsened the workplace atmosphere, negatively impacting others' work. Although Kimberly, with her top university degree and high sales performance, wasn't looked down upon, Miller seemed envious, blatantly accusing her of using her femininity to her advantage. Moreover, he had been making rough loans to clients to meet quotas, and when Kimberly gently warned him, he yelled, "Don't you dare talk back to me."
I hate to say it, but he's a terrible person. I had decided to stay away from him.
He's not my friend. I interrupted, slamming my chopsticks down in anger. I couldn't hide my anger at Kimberly's story.
Aren't you good friends, being invited to his wedding?
It's okay. He's been rotten since in college. You don't have to deal with him anymore. Sorry for causing you distress. I spat out bitterly.
Why are you apologizing? Haha.
Kimberly laughed, looking at me curiously. She seemed a bit surprised, as I usually don't show negative emotions in front of her. Right. I forced a smile, but my agitation was evident. I couldn't stand Miller's casual remarks about Kimberly, which disrespected her just because she was a woman, knowing how hard she worked every day and returning home exhausted. Kimberly wasn't someone who would use her femininity to get ahead. I knew her sincerity and straightforward nature better than anyone. I met Kimberly 3 years ago while cleaning the floors of a large building housing several major corporations. In addition to daily cleaning, we had a contract for monthly thorough cleanings. That day was for cleaning the floors of the lobby and corridors, which required partially taping off areas to keep them walkable while using specialized equipment. The work went smoothly, and the dirty floors were quickly shining again. I love this moment of looking back at my work. Just a bit more to go. Let's keep it up, I muttered, psyching myself up. Then, a young male office worker returned from outside and passed by me. As he did, he tossed a trash bag onto the floor cleaned with detergent, saying, "Take care of this too." I picked up the bag to look inside. The trash bag he left behind was filled with leftovers from a convenience store lunch or coffee cans, probably eaten at some park during his outside work. "Hey, wait." I called after him, but he walked away without turning back. It got me mad, but held back, bearing not to cause trouble that could risk our cleaning contract. Just then, a woman snatched the trash bag from my hand and dashed off after the young man, yelling,
"Wait, please!"
As she chased him down. I watched in amazement as the woman confronted the man.
"You should clean up your own trash. Even a kindergartner knows that,"
she scolded, handing the garbage bag back to the man waiting for the elevator. Reluctantly, he accepted it and got on the elevator. The woman then ran back to me, smiling, and said,
"I used to be in track and field."
I was instantly captivated by her carefree smile. It was love at first sight. We awkwardly exchanged contact information, something I had never done before in my life. This was how I met Kimberly. She's full of justice and has a straightforward way of looking at things. My wife is not someone to be belittled by a jerk like Miller. I was only worried that she would be further troubled by him. Should I cancel the wedding invitation now? No, it might be too late and cause trouble. Miller doesn't know we're married, so it might be better to act like strangers at the reception. We got married when you were at your previous branch, so no one from work should know me. I told Kimberly. I didn't want to add to her troubles with my issues.
"Why? Why should we hide it?"
Kimberly looked puzzled, understandably unaware of the situation. To avoid some trouble, okay. Seeing my serious face, she reluctantly agreed. On the wedding day, the reception was held at a top-notch hotel in downtown with 500 guests, a grand affair. Miller's bride was a 23-year-old woman named Marilyn, the daughter of a man of wealth who owns a chain of restaurants. VIPs, probably business associates of the bride's father, were spotted around. I was seated at the friend's table on the groom's side, while Kimberly, pretending to be a stranger as promised, sat at a bank associate's table a little away. As soon as I took my seat, I felt the cold stares of Miller's acquaintances. They started ostentatiously updating each other on their recent achievements. Major securities firms, leading construction companies, top trading companies. The names of big corporations flew around. Then, a man named Smith sitting next to me struck up a conversation.
Long time no see, Johnson. It's been what, 6 years since you left college. What are you doing now?
Smith was the only decent guy here, who, I heard, started his own IT company in college and now is a CEO. Smith, it's been a while. I'm working in cleaning and maintenance.
Smith, give it a rest.
One of the others interrupted before I could finish.
Don't you feel sorry for him? A college dropout, a janitor, sneaking among the elite. Let him be.
The others joined in, sneering and whispering loudly enough for me to hear. Bold of you to come. A disgrace to our college. Smith looked at me, confused, but I gestured to him that I was fine. As the bride and groom entered and the reception started, the attacks on me didn't stop. I was prepared as they are Miller's acquaintance, but I couldn't understand why they belittled my job so much. Smith's whisper, "Don't mind them," and his smile were my only solace. The moment came during the candle service when the newlyweds approached our table.
Johnson, thanks for coming today. Glad you could make it.
Miller said, looking down at me with a smirk. Congratulations, I said, nodding to the bride as well. The bride, Marilyn, appeared young and pretty at first glance, but there was a sense that her looks were enhanced with makeup. More notably, her way of speaking seemed rather unintelligent.
My arm is so tired. Brandon, do it by yourself.
She whined childishly, puffing her cheeks. Her blush was overly bright, reminiscent of a doll.
Marilyn, it's almost over. Let's hang in there, okay?
Miller soothed her with a cajoling tone. The others at the table exchanged looks and chuckled. I tried to suppress my laughter as I watched. Suddenly, Miller, with a devilish, pale face, accused me, "Johnson, you just laughed, didn't you?" No, not at all. Wondering if my inner laughter had inadvertently shown. Then Miller grabbed the plate of half-eaten food in front of me and flung it to the floor.
Oh no!
Marilyn screamed. The sauce splattered dramatically on the expensive carpet.
Oops, my bad. Slipped my hand. Ha ha.
Miller laughed, looking down at me. People at nearby tables turned their attention to us. A female staff member rushed over to clean up, but Miller stopped her.
No need to worry. My friend here is a janitor, accustomed to cleaning buildings and such. He's used to handling dirty stuff, so let's leave it to him. Please, janitor.
But asking a guest too.
The staff hesitated. Marilyn interrupted, "Just do what Brandon says," and dismissed her. I was beyond anger, just dumbfounded. Marilyn, sneering just like Miller, looked at me. A match made in heaven. You two deserve each other. I muttered with a laugh.
What?
Miller turned to me, his face changing color. Ignoring him, I stood up and instructed the staff. For now, as a temporary measure, use a lukewarm, damp cloth with some neutral detergent. Dab it on the stain to transfer the dirt to the cloth. It's best to get it professionally cleaned as soon as possible. Then, glaring at Miller, I said, "I'm a professional cleaner. If you want me to clean, come to my company and make a formal request." I threw my napkin on the chair and was about to leave when Marilyn blocked my way.
My husband said your society's trash. Haha, trash shouldn't defy the elite.
I looked at her, thinking how different she was from Kimberly. When I noticed Kimberly behind the bride, Kimberly. Surprised, I saw Kimberly tap Marilyn's shoulder and say with a broad smile,
I'll have my dad remove Brandon's work desk.
Marilyn shook off her hand.
What are you talking about? That's impossible. And who are you?
Thompson, what's wrong with you, drunk? Sleep talk should be saved for bed. Mind your own business.
Miller said, trying to push Kimberly away. I quickly brushed off his hand, standing protectively in front of Kimberly. Thompson was Kimberly's maiden name, which she still uses at work. As for her real father, suddenly, the bank branch manager appeared, laughing, and the atmosphere instantly tensed up.
Your strong sense of justice must come from Bob, Kimberly.
Manager, I'm sorry you had to see that embarrassing scene.
Kimberly replied, looking mortified. The branch manager, seeing her discomfort, added,
I know you're busy, but try to call Bob sometimes. When I saw him at the main office recently, he seemed lonely.
Yes.
Kimberly responded, looking down shyly.
Manager, today, we're honored by your presence.
Miller hurriedly tried to interject, pushing me aside, but the manager ignored him and spoke to me.
Kyle, it's been a while. How is President Susan doing?
Miller gaped at me, stunned. Sorry for the late greetings, manager. My aunt is as lively as ever, working hard every day. The manager nodded and smiled, saying,
I heard she's launching a new welfare-related venture, with you as her successor. She must be excited about her work.
Miller and Marilyn looked at us, utterly confused.
Manager isn't her father.
This guy, he's not just a janitor, right?
The manager replied, looking exasperated.
You didn't know her father is Bob, the head of the Human Resources Department. And this Kyle Johnson here is the nephew of the president of Johnson Corporation, which owns several cleaning-related subsidiaries. And he's the next president. He's also Kimberly's husband.
The head of HR, the next president, her husband.
Miller panicked, stepping back with a pale face. Marilyn was also flustered.
But he was wearing work clothes, doing building cleaning.
Miller exclaimed. The manager, looking impressed, turned to me and said,
It's the president's policy that all employees involved in management, especially executives, must undergo several years of training on site. Knowing the hardships of the field is crucial for company management. Truly a remarkable company.
Turning to Miller, he continued,
Johnson Corporation is a major client of our branch. If this incident leads to a cancellation of our transactions, you'll definitely be sent out. And with the HR head's impression of you now soured, there's no saving you. Well, try your best with your lovely bride wherever you go.
The manager chuckled. I have another appointment, so I'll be leaving now, and left.
Manager, such a thing.
Miller and Marilyn hesitantly turned to us.
Thompson, Johnson,
Miller tried to speak, his face contorted with a fake smile. Sorry, Miller, but we'll be leaving now. As the next president, I need to discuss changing the main bank with my aunt, I said. Kimberly added,
And I need to call my father right away.
Miller clung to us desperately.
Please, Thompson, Johnson, we're friends, right?
Friends, huh? Don't make me laugh. I brushed off his hand. "You're finished." Miller collapsed to his knees, his head bowed. Kimberly and I left the scene together. Behind us, as we opened the doors to leave, Marilyn's screams echoed.
What? You're getting fired from the bank. This is a joke. Call off this wedding. I don't want to marry a man like this. Daddy, do something.
The venue erupted in chaos.
What? Stupid woman. I'm better off without you.
What did you say?
We heard them arguing and looked at each other, laughing. Leaving the hotel, we took a taxi and got off near our house at a convenience store, where we bought some takeout and beer instead of the missed full-course French dinner. We walked side by side leisurely towards our home, bathed in the sunset. It felt like a long overdue date, and it was enjoyable. Was it okay? Now everyone at the bank knows about Bob. I asked Kimberly as we paused in the middle of a small bridge over a river.
I have grown up watching my mom struggle after the divorce, so I couldn't forgive my father who was too absorbed in his work and neglected his family. That's why I worked desperately hard, choosing a general position often said to be too challenging for a woman. I vowed not to lose to men, to my father.
Kimberly said, her gaze distant. She continued,
But working at the same bank, I've come to understand the hardships my father faced. I think he had a tough time too, so now I hope to build a better relationship with him.
Leaning on the railing, she gazed at the river shimmering in the sunset, then turned to me.
I can think this way because of you. You've always been there for me, gently supporting me. Thank you, Kyle.
Her smile, tinged with the colors of the sunset, made me feel a bit shy. Let's have dinner with Bob sometime, I suggested. Kimberly nodded happily in response. Later, according to Kimberly, Brandon Miller's wedding reception turned into a disaster. It ended up in a huge fight involving not only the bride and groom, but also their parents and relatives who were initially against the marriage. The reception was, of course, called off, and the couple separated, leading to a broken engagement. As for Miller, he was transferred to a subsidiary of the bank, effectively removed from the fast track to success. Since that incident, he reportedly became much quieter, though I wondered if people could change that quickly. He'll surely show his true colors soon enough. A few years later, Kimberly was transferred to the main branch, working in the Human Resources Career Group, supporting and conducting training programs for female employees. She was actively involved in creating a work environment where women could balance child rearing and their careers, gaining media attention as a potential female executive. As for me, I completed my on-site training and was receiving full-fledged successor training under the company president.
You're starting to look good in a suit. I wish my brother and sister-in-law could see you.
Dressed in an unfamiliar suit during our rounds to clients, the president said tearfully, I spent my days accompanying her. At the end of a day, I found myself on that familiar bridge, watching the sunset. I felt particularly grateful for finding a fulfilling job. I wished I could tell my past self, who had lost his parents and dropped out of college in despair, your future is incredibly happy.
Kyle?
Startled, I turned around to see Kimberly approaching with a smile, waving her hand. Welcome back. You're home early today. She approached me, slightly embarrassed, and said,
I left work early today. Went to the hospital.
What? Are you okay? I asked, concerned. Kimberly didn't answer directly but smiled, tears in her eyes, and pulled out an ultrasound image from her bag, hiding half of her face with it.
I'm 3 months pregnant.
Overwhelmed with joy, I hugged her tightly.
We're going to be parents.
Kimberly said tearfully. Oh, how I wished I could tell my younger self. I am incredibly happy right now.